Welcome to the El Cambio Guardia channel live stream. Today I'm here with Jacob Amar Rothstein, who is behind the profile of Jewish philosophy. He is dedicated to sharing the Torah both for Jews and non-Jews. He is a rabbi, engineer, and war veteran, which I didn't know. Jacob, how are you? Are you there?
Thank you for the invitation and thanks to everyone watching. We are in dynamic times. We said earlier that news isn't just about the past. We're living it and making history now. I think anyone who participates, whether by staying informed or being more active, is part of history. Our grandchildren will thank us for being on the right side.
Absolutely. And also, in the information age, everything happens and you're already finding out what's going on. Except in the case of Iran, where I think most people don't really know what's going on there. Because there are reports of power outages, internet shutdowns. I know you already did a live stream about Iran, so what's going on there?
In Iran, for about 47 years, they've lived under an Islamic, fascist, totalitarian, theocratic regime that represses all populations that are not like them and almost no one. Human beings are against the nature of such a radical line that the time has come for change. I don't know how to say it in Spanish, the straw that breaks the camel's back. They've crossed that limit, they're tired. It began as an economic annoyance sparking protests, but quickly spread since the discontent went beyond just the economy. They spent years in Iran without water. If you have public services here, I hope you appreciate them. Even a glass of water feels like a blessing to me. And we realize that in Iran, there are people who turn on the tap and the water comes out yellow. And this is just one of the many daily factors for Iranians. So there's a lot of discontent in Iran. And what's happening is that the main centers of the most important cities in Iran have been taken over, including the capital, Tehran. And I was talking about this in a live broadcast a moment ago before coming in here. When I saw that they were holding demonstrations in Iran, I said, well, it's another round because they hold demonstrations every 5 or 6 years and it's always the same. The regime comes down with an iron fist and everything ends. But in reality, we're talking about millions of people taking part who have taken over extremely important centers. And other factors like the regime being weak in economic, geopolitical, and social aspects. It's an opposition to the regime that has organized itself in a much stronger way, with a much more solid and well-known leader. As this audience points out, just so you know, the news is already well known to everyone. Except Iranians, since their regime shuts down the internet to prevent organizing and protests. And even so, after not organizing in the millions, the regime is losing. The video is the big news.
What I'm finding difficult is finding people who speak from there. I mean, I'm finding it very, very hard because either they don't have the means, the technical resources to make a connection, or they are under very, very strong censorship. I'm not sure if you've spoken with anyone from Iran.
Locals, Iranians, nothing. What you see is what they're able to upload to social media with that limited internet that Elon Musk has been able to provide them. But it's just a drop in the ocean. We're talking about a huge country, including people in extremely scattered places. I found it on social media. And very few exiled Iranians, many of whom most speak English, but some speak Spanish. And this, there are some who have spoken out, but with some fear. Do you know if your family, and surely the public will be watching us, people from Venezuela, for example, in Venezuela, some who celebrated Maduro's issue were told to delete all messages sent to family. Why? Because we're talking about a regime, so you won't see much. That's why you'll see macro accounts like Iranian accounts, but not ones specifically promoting the fall of the regime. But you won't see that kind of resolution because at the end of the day, we're talking about an extremely oppressive regime.
Jacob, since you're more up to date, how many? I've seen several media reports. How many people are currently listed as dead in the protests? I've seen numbers from 40 to 100.
And the latest figure being talked about now is 2,000. We're talking about an extremely outrageous number, 2,000 going back to the topic of Venezuela, and not to minimize the issue, just so people can put things in perspective. In the 20 years the Chavista regime was in power, they killed around 500 people and likely even more disappeared. All of that happened in Iran in the last 48 hours, according to this latest report. And not like you say, the data is read here and there, but we don't really know. When Iran shuts down the internet, we know it's not to offer kindness to those protesting the regime. So basically, data on 2,000 people in just a few hours, it's wild if that's accurate. I don't know how something that big hasn't turned the world upside down. So that's the situation. We're not talking about a regime, though you might think so. But how can a regime not support its own people? Let me share one story. Iran had a war with Iraq about 30-something years ago. It was a war that had 1 million casualties, something immeasurable. Iran, the Iranian army. What they did was take Iranian children and give them plastic keys, telling them these were the keys to paradise, and they made them clear minefields. For what purpose? So that the Iranian army could pass through. They sent their own children to clear the way for the army. We're talking about a mentality that we, with a much more, let's say, westernized mindset, let's say, can't even comprehend the Jews. Let's value life, but in ideologies like theirs, life is minimal. What matters is that ultimate hegemonic Islamic goal. If you have to trample your own people, does it matter? You've done it to your regime for 47 years. What's a little more? So, this is the issue with the numbers. That's why it's uncertain, because we still don't know when the interdeli will end. When God decides the regime is over, we'll know.
Yes, since you just brought it up, Iran wasn't always Muslim, right? Not until the Islamic Revolution in 79, if I'm correct.
That's right. And not only that, yes, Islam has been present here for about 13 centuries since its expansion. Do you remember Islam? This region began in the Arabian Peninsula and was expansionist from the start. In their early decades, they had already reached today's Persian region, now their rival, and established Islam there. But the Islam in Iran is somewhat different from what most Western citizens are used to, because it's a type of Islam called Shia. There are two major branches of Islam, and Shia Islam is one of them. They've always been a minority. Today, they make up 25% of the world, but that's always been the case. This is the first time in history that this minority has taken power in a country with oil and huge gas reserves. And is this the big issue of why Iran is such a dangerous country? Because they are this minority that wants revenge on the whole world and wants to create global hegemony, and they have the resources to do it. So that's the issue. Iran wasn't always Muslim, just like the Middle East. Do you see Arabic letters all over the Middle East? It wasn't always like that. Israel was Jewish. In the Persian area, there were Persians. There were other types of religions like Zoroastrianism. There are the Baloch. There are the Kurds, many from the Day of the Sea. But of course, even about that, with the devil's fist, lips are made.
And that's a bit of what people in Iran complain about because you say it starts from the economic side. A brutal inflation, people don't have economic resources. In some parts of the country, people are starting to go hungry, and that's what motivates people a bit, don't you think? Because, of course, the other day I was talking to someone who told me, of course, Iran is carrying out an expansion, a border policy, aggression towards its neighbors. Most Iranians don't want to pay for this.
Exactly. So there's a saying in the Talmud that if you want to know a person, touch their pocket, or with a drink, or when they're angry. In this case, the poor Iranian is having his pocket touched. They're tired of living in poverty for years. But that's because they've been sanctioned over the issue of wanting to make a nuclear bomb, and they keep enriching uranium. So the world has imposed sanctions on them, and they've been in decline, but now inflation has exploded. And the discontent, that was like the trigger, but it was just one of many sources of discontent they already had. It wasn't just about the economy. It's worth noting that, as mentioned earlier, Iran was once a monarchy before becoming the Islamic Republic of Iran, mainly due to economic discontent and lack of preparation. What was happening then? And there were also a series of policies that upset the people. There was a revolution that was carried out by the socialists and the Muslims. This may seem odd to Westerners given the current geopolitical landscape. The same alliance from 50 years ago is now causing the trouble. Alliance and socialists in universities, media, and social networks. This was the alliance that overthrew the Shah's kingdom at that time, Shah Reza. Today, amid economic discontent, which may be triggering this, what's happening goes far beyond simple discontent. I don't know if you've seen, or if the audience has seen, Ivan, for example, women taking off their veils, which for a Western woman is like, well, just taking off a little hat. For the Iranian reality, that's like condemning yourself and being exposed to a punishment that could end your life. Like what happened with Masamili, who, when she wore the veil properly, they took her life. Or, for example, we've seen extremely brave images, and I don't understand how that's true feminism. Let's be honest, women with the image of the supreme leader of Iran, flames burning, losing cigarettes. This is unthinkable. It's like, I don't know, like when the people of Israel were in Egypt and Israel before leaving slavery, we slaughtered a lamb and painted the doors, which is shocking since lambs were sacred to the Egyptians. You're doing the most unthinkable act in that place. Unthinkable. That's what the Iranian people are doing. Iranian women, true feminists. Not for show or by accident, but that's what we're seeing. The economic issue isn't just a trigger.
Yes, there are several nuances that somewhat work against the Ayatollah's regime. What you're saying about women is like signing your own death sentence here. But women have done this for years. It's not the first time we've seen them remove their veils. Well, this last part, lighting a cigarette and burning photos of the Ayatollah, this already seems like a movie.
Yes, it's really like you said, this had already happened before. The protests and the thing with the photos definitely happened. That's already a sentence, unless the regime falls or that woman escapes. But the issue of protests, there have always been protests for economic reasons as well, and also for other issues. The case of Max Amini. Let me give you a public summary. In Iran, women have to wear a veil. They have to cover their hair because the Shah sees it as a lack of modesty. Modesty. So a young woman named Amini, about my age, was not only not that she wasn't wearing the veil, sorry, she was wearing it incorrectly, she just had it on, but a little bit of her hair was showing. In Iran, there's something called the morality police, who are basically police officers, but they're in charge of enforcing Islamic law. For example, if you listen to rock and roll on the street, the morality police might hit you, smack your head, and order you to turn off the music because it's against Islam. For example, another case is if they see a woman with her hair uncovered, they go and hit her with a stick to make her cover her hair, or they arrest her and take her away. And they interrogate her? That's what happened to Maximini. They hit her with a stick, took her life, and people were very unhappy. There were protests for Maximini, so what did the Iranian government do? In Rome, they suppressed their own people with an iron fist, and that issue remains unresolved. But the Iranian people do not forget. We're talking about people who have figures like Cyrus the Great and the very king of Persia, the very king of Iran, the Shah, on their shoulders. He held, let's say, ceremonies, he held events commemorating figures like Cyrus, like Xerxes, like the figures they honor. Their culture is commemorated, historical, it's an ancient people, so I don't think they're going to forget about the Mahasamini issue. Even though those demonstrations ended, it's like a staircase. Each demonstration has been much stronger, and I think this one is the most important.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned it the other day in one of your videos or if I saw it somewhere else, but I thought it was really, really good. That phrase that said there's something worse for tyrants than not being feared, how did it go? It was something. It was worse than that. I mean, what I wanted to say is that the worst thing that can happen to a tyrant is for people to stop respecting them, to stop fearing them, to stop, because then the revolution is inevitable.
To be honest, Israel, we also fall into that game. Iran has always been a large, wealthy country with many people and weapons. Israel is a small country, and for years Iran has threatened to wipe us out, calling us the world's cancer, the little Satan, the great Satan of the United States, and that many take detours when it comes down to the truth. Israel, and what about the operation that happened in 2025, the war? The 12 days that he was there, because it lasted 12 days. Actually, it lasted longer, but he was there. I think that Israel, and it's clear that Iran is, I don't know if this saying exists in Spanish, but like a paper tiger, the tiger is a I don't get how they have professionals. Yes, they launched a missile or two at Israel, and I won't deny that a scenario. But if they let this network go again, the number of missiles will be much higher, so many that even intercepting them would be a bigger challenge. But they're not. This is they're isolated geopolitically. Russia, which was just a little ally, can't help them anymore. It's dealing with its own nuclear situation. China, what are they going to do? The situation in Iran's cities is already irreversible. Was Venezuela going to help them? Maduro is in jail. They are geopolitically devastated, economically devastated. Their opposition is completely aligned. And what became very clear is that they are exercising a regime. There are several reasons why this situation is unlike previous ones. And yes, they're a paper tiger.
What people tend to forget is what happened in 2023 and what happened in 2005 with the 12-day war that you mentioned now. It's that Israel was at war with Iran, and Israel was at war with Iran's proxies, which are Hezbollah and Hamas. So, when people criticize Israel for declaring war on Iran or being in a battle in Gaza, is it because they were trying to overthrow Iran's proxies? Iran funds these people, right? With the Iranian regime expected to fall, will the left, especially the Spanish left, also fall? They bring out the Ayatollah's flag, saying we have to support the Ayatollahs in the war against Israel, that Israel is a state, blah blah blah. All these things they talk about, but it's just the new mantra they have, you don't have to support this. 10 days ago, it was Maduro. 3 or 4 months ago, it was Palestine, the Palestinian people. Now it's this. What's next?
Yes, and a few years ago it was comics. It's always about making excuses. So, are you saying that's correct? I haven't seen any demonstration, none in the Spanish context, no Barbie glass ever, or whatever all those are called. The mayor of Barcelona. They use a flotilla to deliver water to Iranians without it. They won't do it because Israel isn't their cause. It's not just it's Jew-phobic. So
Yes.
obviously they're not going to do it and they're not interested. But regarding the topic you mentioned about Israel having been at war with Iran for a long time, did you portray it exactly as Iran? And in fact, there are theories that chess originated in Iran, in the Persian region. The chaturanga I played from India passes through Iran and its government, which is skilled at chess, knowing how to move and sacrifice pawns. It uses groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, and militias in Iraq to target Israel, sacrificing others while keeping itself safe. Israel had to fight against the tentacles of a bulb, but the time came when Israel got tired and caught the head of the bulb in a brutal way. I don't know if you remember the Amkiravi operation, which was called that in Hebrew, that then as a people, as a lion, and it's not a coincidence. It's because I think it's also meaningful for the Iranians themselves, since the lion is a symbol. Not just about Yehuda. Numbers chapter 24 describes the people rising like a lion. It's also the symbol of the Iranians, and many Iranians actually took it that way. Because I don't know if you've seen the flag of Iran, which currently has a symbol that looks like the name of Allah, but that symbol before, the same colors, green and red. Before it wasn't that Islamic symbol, but rather a lion with a sword and a sun behind it. The lion also symbolizes the Iranian people, so it's no coincidence Israel named the operation that, because it also points to the fact that the Iranian people will also make efforts to free their population. They're doing exactly that. I applaud the Iranians, think they're very brave, and believe they deserve full support now. And regarding the issue of Israel's struggle, the fight was always against Iran. The proxies are an illusion. Many military analysts have said you have to go for the head of the octopus and the tentacles will dry up on their own. Iran is the one who has financed them. Well, Iran, Qatar, and Turkey are the axis, but Iran to a large extent. So I think Israel started something with Iran, right? In fact, they came saying that Israel is the cancer of the world, and all those differences, so of course not.
Yeah, speaking of the opposition, you mentioned the Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi, right? Not the other man. Do you think his influence could tip the balance to finally bring down the regime? How do you see his leadership?
As people, for example, in Latin America may have noticed, maybe also in Spain, there are many Venezuelans who are in exile. We're talking about 8 million Venezuelans. They all agree on one thing, that Maduro's regime is bad and that unites them in opposition to be against Maduro and to take a very clear stance. Some people in Venezuela may clearly oppose it, but small groups or circles still support the regime. A similar scenario happens in Iran, except that Iran is much more complicated than any Western country, of course, Iran. We're talking about half being of Persian ethnicity and half of Arab ethnicity. We're talking about some being Sunni, others Shiite branches of Islam, others are Zoroastrians, others are Baloch, others are Kurds. There are many ethnicities. It's a sea of positions. So when we're talking about who supports the monarchy that was there before the Islamist regime, Those who are in exile, most of them, there are some who are also Muslims, but they're simply not radical. Well, they say they're not as radical as the current government, but they're Muslims. And what about all this? Whereas the government of El Shah, which had a very diverse group of people, including Muslims among them, were Zoroastrians. There are all kinds of people, but since they are in exile, they understand very well what led them to exile. It was political persecution, it was religious persecution, and that's why they're in exile. We hear these are the voices we hear from Iranians, because since there is no internet inside Iran now, the voices we hear are very much in favor of the son of the Shah, who is now the new Shah. The king, the Shah, is like the king of Iran, but inside Iran, I think the situation is much more complex. I think there is a following, as we've seen videos with the lion flag, but not everyone supports them. Iran is complex. Maybe the solution for there to be peace one day in Iran is to divide Iran into sectors and autonomous regions. I hope the Kurds can one day walk freely in Kurdistan. Currently, everyone keeps talking about Iran and Venezuela. Currently, Al-Juran's forces in Syria are nearing their end. I won't claim social media censorship was the cause, but they are doing terrible things to the Kurdish population. The Kurds were unfortunate to end up split across 4 territories. A piece in Turkey, a piece in Syria, they're talking really harshly, a piece in Iran, also Iran, they've been wiping out Kurds left and right all these past years. Last year, Iran had conflicts with Afghanistan. Instead of making the video, they're happy about what's happening and are starting to take Iranian territory. Iran has also had conflicts with Pakistan in recent months. We're talking about a conflict, a very, very complicated mix. So I know how many support the chat because there aren't any that are certain yet.
And the Iraqis who attacked the Kurds? Not during the 90s.
Yes, still the Iraqis. Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, a terrorist group aiming to create a global caliphate, fought the most in Iraq over the past decade. One of the most brutal terrorist groups in recent times, originally from Iraq's Mosul and Raqqa areas. They wiped out the Kurds, yet the Kurds fought hardest to stop Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. So the Kurds deserve a great deal of gratitude for their fight against Islamic terror, and also for everything they've endured against all these totalitarian regimes trying to overcome them completely.
One last thing, since I know your time is limited. I was wondering the other day if this power vacuum that the Ayatollahs might leave won't be taken over by the Muslim Brotherhood. Because during the 12-day war in June 2025 against Israel, there was a letter sent by the Muslim Brotherhood, even though they belong to the other major branch of Muslims, which are the Sunnis, because this movement didn't originate in Egypt. It started in the 1920s of the last century. There was a letter saying that even though we are a bit distant in religious terms, the common enemy is the West, Israel. So, do you think there could be a rapprochement between the Muslim Brotherhood and the Ayatollahs?
No, I don't think so, although something similar exists, like the rural group that stands out more. What group originated from the Muslim Brotherhood founded by Bani? And then Ahmad Yassin, who is one of the, let's say, followers of the Muslim Brotherhood, founded Hamas in Islam. There are 2 groups, Sunnis and Shiites, who dislike each other and can also dislike Westerners. So much so that Israel has peace agreements with Sunni countries like Bahrain and the Emirates. Under the table, we have very good relations with the Sunni country, which is Saudi Arabia, because we are doing so well thanks to Iran. Since Iran is against them, Iran wants to wipe everyone out, so they have also preferred to be on Israel's side to stand against Iran. So the Muslim Brotherhood was born in a Shiite group. I see little chance, unless it's the scenario you mentioned about uniting against someone, as an Arabic saying goes, me versus my brother, but together we stand against my cousin, and my cousin and I unite against my neighbor. If it's Sunni and Shia radicals like Hamas and Iran, they would likely ally, but only for a specific purpose. However, what I think is the worst possible scenario, the best scenario, is for the monarchy to remain. That means peace with the West, peace with Israel, and well, inside, I don't know what dynamics they should have. Iran is going to continue with internal civil wars for many years, but what is going to happen, the worst scenario that I think could happen. And let's be honest, the Ayatollah, who is a real dictator in Iran, is an old man in his 80s. And at that age, you're not really in charge anymore. You're just sitting in a chair and someone comes and whispers in your ear what you have to think, what you have to do. They update you on what's happening and you make the decision. But really, someone else is making the decision. So the Iranian regime, is the Ayatollah really just a puppet for other people? If the Ayatollah leaves, like what happened in Syria, does that mean there would be no more killings? So Ayatollah. Like what happened in Syria, so there would have been killings. Ayatollah, it happened, there would have been killings. These are periods of transition. The same thing happens with the case of Ayatollah. Like, there would have been killings, Ayatollah. It happened in Syria.
So much already, Ayatollah. It has happened. There would have been killings. So much, Ayatollah.
The Ayatollah happened, there would not have been homicide. It is a very strong army, stronger than many others. The Ayatollah happened with Syria, so there would not have been homicide. The Ayatollah. So there would not have been homicide. Then the Ayatollah leaves, as has happened with Syria. Therefore, Ayatollah homicide happened with Syria, so there would not have been homicide. Ayatollah happened, so the Ayatollah would have been. Happened with Syria, so there would not have been homicide.
What do you think? The last question. What do you think we are going to see in the coming weeks in Iran?
Look, one of the lessons I learned is that we are the Sardes. You really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not joking. And may Hashem protect us. Right now, the siren could sound if Israel decides to attack Iran, so I can't speculate on what might happen. Assad, Syria's dictator, suddenly fell, and the entire country changed instantly. Jews, Israel out of nowhere. In a single day, it wiped out all the 10 main ministers and military leaders just like that. So, we're talking about dynamics that I think are out of our hands. In fact, these protests started as economic and now Iran is on fire. So, I don't know. Your question is very good. I don't want to speculate, but it's very likely that the regime will fall. The factors point to the regime not making it out of this, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball to see the future either, but I'd bet it's already taking its last breaths, as we say here. Yakov, thanks for joining this live stream. I'm 4 minutes over our agreed time, but that's all I wanted to mention. Thanks for visiting the channel to share updates about Iran. Since you're closer to the situation and know more, let me know if you need anything.
Thank you, Daniel, for inviting me. Even though we're not Iranians, it's important to highlight their experiences. It's because they are a very important piece for the future of the world, for the security of the world. And I encourage anyone in the comments, if you know Iranians, if you have Iranian friends who speak Spanish, bring them in. Because on my platform, Philosophy Al Dia, Daniel, I think you'd be interested in hearing the Iranian perspective directly. So comment names or contacts, because people like us want to give voices, because this is a fight we're all in to make the world better too. Thank you for taking part, and well, greetings to everyone.
Thank you, that's what we're doing. Sending you a big hug.
My friend, bye.
Take care.